All right, what's up, y'all? This your girl, Coach Danny Renee, and this is the Millennial Network podcast. We have here Marvette Critney, who is a real estate broker, real estate agent. She has years and years of experience with Opulence Real Estate Group. Marvette, tell me about, first of all, how long have you been doing real estate?
So I got my license in 2006, but I have literally been doing real estate probably for 25 plus years because I did real estate for the federal government as a contracting officer. So I've been
Okay.
doing it for a while.
So you said the federal government as a contracting officer?
Yes. So my background is that I'm former military, and after the military, I went to work for the government, went to several different agencies, always worked in some sort of facility management aspect, dealing with space and the government space. When I went over to GSA back in, I think 2007, I went to GSA and I was a
What's
senior
GSA?
General Services Administration. So in
Okay.
terms of real estate, this is a little historical fact. The government is the largest, basically, real estate company in the nation or in the world. The government owns more than, everything. You think about a federal courthouse. Well, the federal government may own that courthouse or they may lease that space out from someone. So I was a senior contracting officer with GSA. So I was the person responsible for getting and acquiring space for a variety of federal agencies. So
Wait a
that's my
minute.
background.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. You know what? You just taught me something because I never we hear that you don't truly own real estate here in America because even if you pay it all off, you still have to pay taxes and different things. But I've never heard of it from the perspective of the government being the biggest real estate entity as far as like the different government buildings and whatnot.
Yeah. So one of the things that people don't, or you just don't even think about it, it's like if you go to the post office, right? Sometimes you go to a federal postal building where it's, historical and it may be an old postal building. Or I happen to reside in the Decatur area. So we have a post office right down the street off of Wesley Chapel. Well, it's still federal property that is leased from a local person. So no matter what federal agency you belong to or you work for, they have to acquire space one way or another. So some agencies are in the federal building. So if you think about down there, what is it, near 5 Points, you have the Martin Luther King building, you have the federal courthouse, you have where EPA, right near where the McDonald's is at, like literally across from the train station is a federal complex, right? That space is owned. Well, actually, that space has a 99-year lease from the city of Atlanta, but traditionally you would think of that as federally owned space. But you may go to the Social Security Administration, and they're typically out in neighborhoods, and the government has to lease that space from someone for the government agency to be there. All government agencies pay rent. They pay rent back to GSA through the Federal Public Building Fund. So it's not free. It's all paid for, by taxpayer dollars and out of their budget for the year. But yes, when you think about parks and the Martin Luther King Civil Rights Center, all of that stuff is owned ultimately by the federal government. So when you think of it on that level, yeah, we own. Think about Yellowstone National Park. Well, that's owned by the federal government.
Wow. Talk about matter of perspective. Like that's a real perspective. So one, I didn't know you were a veteran. What
Yes.
branch were you in?
U.S. Army, 4 years active
Okay.
duty. Yes.
4 years active duty. Nice. All right. Yeah, I was in the Air Force. I did 3 years in the Air Force.
Oh, my son is in the Air Force now.
Okay.
He's
nice. So thank you for your service.
And you too. You too.
Thank you. Thank you. So real estate. I know you say you've been doing it for a while, and that's kind of a little bit about your start. So after the government, and I know you mentioned like before we got on the call, you were saying like you're not a millennial, but you do your real estate brokers do typically bring on millennial real estate agents because of your experience and your mentorship. But how did you get into real estate? And I know some people stay on the sales side. So how did you get into real estate, and what brought you into the brokerage aspect?
So again, my real estate career really started with the government, and kind of being behind the scenes from a government standpoint. It was always something I wanted to do. So at some point in time, I was like, let me get a real estate license. And I got my original license in 2006. And then in 2015, because I knew I was about to transition into that retirement phase of, it's time for me to retire from the government, I need to be able to have my own business, I went ahead and got my broker's license. So I've been a broker since 2015, and I opened up my company in 2015. So, the big goal with Opulence Real Estate Group is that we're not a traditional brokerage. We're like a transitional brokerage. Like, I like to bring agents on that truly want to have their own business and want to get their broker's license. So our agency is like a pit stop along the way. We want you to come in, get some experience so that in 3 years, you can go and take that broker test and get your broker's license, and then go ahead and open up your own company. A lot of people tend to go with some of the bigger companies, and I'll mention them, the Keller Williams and the EXPs. But as a broker, you keep all your money in your pocket. You get to make and decide, what it is that you want to do, as long as you're, within the confines of license law. So again, I wanted to be that transitional point of helping people who wanted their own brokerage to be able to come in, get the experience, and then transition out into the real world, as they say.
That's actually pretty awesome, because you don't hear about the mentorship aspect in real estate often. So put it like this. Say, for instance, I want to get into real estate because real estate is easy. My friends and family, I do want to make money, and I'm hearing that real estate, if you want to be a millionaire, real estate is the easiest way to it. So as soon as I get my license, my friends and family, they're going to buy from me, and then I'm going to just make all this money. And then reality hits. So tell me, based on your years of experience,
is that your friends and your family tend to be the ones that won't even use you as an agent, because they don't want you all up in their business. Somehow it then becomes, well, I don't want them in my personal business, and they don't need to know that I really got jacked up credit and can't, apply and get a home. So I think that the HGTV of the world and all the other stuff you see makes it look so glamorous, and they never show you the behind the scenes aspect of, having to deal with. Luckily, I haven't had any crazy buyers. I will say that it really has been good, but I've had a couple of crazy sellers. They weren't necessarily my sellers, but there is a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and everybody kind of wants that glam factor and what they see on Instagram. And that's just not most real estate transactions. Your typical real estate agent out here might do 1 or 2 transactions their first year. So, you have to put the things in place so that you can be successful in this business. Now, what I tell, and I've recruited several of my old buyers to getting their license. I tell everyone, get a real estate license, because there's 999 million different ways you can do real estate. It doesn't have to be residential. It could be commercial. It could be property management. There's so many different aspects to real estate, and there's literally thousands of jobs that tie into real estate. When you think of Amazon, right? Largest company in the world. What do they have? Thousands of warehouses. That is thousands of square feet of real estate that somebody had to build, somebody had to lease, somebody has to property manage, somebody has to oversee. So when you look at it from that perspective, no matter what job you have, it ultimately ties back into some form of real estate. Like, you got to be able to house your product somewhere. If you have a restaurant, you're still sitting in a piece of real estate. Like, literally, real estate is the one thing that ties into every single business across the board. So even if you're doing something virtually, you have a Shopify shop and you're drop shipping, because we know millennials love Shopify and everyone has a shop. That
Right.
stuff is still being, is stored in someone's warehouse and being shipped somewhere. So real estate still ties into it.
Okay, again, talk about perspective, because I feel like most people, even more so with COVID now, COVID has inspired more people today, especially millennials, to get into entrepreneurship because they're realizing they like working from home, or
Right.
they're, especially millennials, like you were saying earlier, millennials aren't staying in jobs long. They're hopping to the next opportunity. And with technology and innovation, it's easy to do that. And also a lot of jobs are being replaced today with technology. So real estate just seems like the easiest approach, and going ahead and getting your license. But say for instance, I finished real estate school, or I
Okay.
finally passed my exam, I get my license. And I usually, I don't know how it works, but real estate agents, they either get hired before they finish their exam, or they shop different companies and get hired like a regular job. So how does that process work? And then as a new agent, and even with mentorship, what should I be doing so that I can at least avoid, because I'm still going to run into issues. Obviously, that's just
Right.
the process of learning. But what are some things that I can do to set myself on a good track of success in real estate?
So you have a couple of different aspects to that. So as you get your license, you may have already interviewed and talked to a couple of different brokers. So I would tell you, reach out to the big name brokers, see what they offer. They tend to have a lot of technology and a lot of training, which is not the same as mentoring. So definitely interview those different companies and see what they bring to the table. I always share with agents that, you can get all of that, but you're going to pay for it. Like, they are not giving that to you free. So it's going to come out of your commission in some form or fashion. So you have brokers that charge a commission split. It may be a 70-30 split or an 80-20 split. You have brokers that charge a flat transaction fee. So every time you have a transaction, you may pay a fee of, $299. Then you also have most brokers that have some form of an monthly office fee as well. It can range. I've seen it as low as $20 a month, and I've seen it as high as, $119 a month. I've seen it as high as $149 a month. It kind of depends on the various companies and what their fees and stuff are. So definitely interview people. And then, of course, talk to agents that are already licensed and see who they're interested in, or who they recommend. Typically with a Keller Williams and I believe EXP, they kind of have a multi-level marketing aspect. So you make money off of the agents that you recruit. So they have a big recruiting initiative, but it doesn't mean that they're a bad company. You just have to figure out what company is going to work for you. The one thing about real estate is that once you get your license, you are the business. Like you become the business. You have to learn, and all training is not created equally. So I see a lot of agents and I'm in a couple of groups with agents. And they're like, I got my license and my mentor sucks, or they're just not even telling me anything. My best advice: Google is your friend, and YouTube University will teach you so much about real estate. Like, what it is on the surface. I tell people you can watch HGTV. I always like the show with, is it David and Hillary, right? And David is like, no, we're going to list it or love it. And he takes you out and he shows you these 3 properties and he tries to get you to buy one of them. That in essence is kind of like what real estate is that a buyer is going to reach out to me, and I'm talking from the buyer's side, and they'll say, hey, I'm looking for a house and I want, 4 bedrooms and I can be anywhere in Metro Atlanta. So they'll tell me what their price point is, and I'll make sure they're qualified through a lender. And then I'm going to go out and, look for properties. We'll find some stuff. I'll schedule some appointments, and literally I'm going to go with them to go and look at these houses. I will point out what I think is great about them. Let them walk through the house, figure out, hey, do you like this house? Do you not like this house? Now, of course, what I'm also sharing is pre-craziness that we're experiencing. right now where it is a seller's market. So there's not enough houses on the market to begin with. So time is of the essence. In the old days, I could schedule something on Saturday. I literally went in the system to schedule an appointment for a client to view a house this Saturday that just went on the market yesterday. And they denied my scheduled request, telling me that the house was already under contract. The house had
That's
literally
crazy.
I'm not exaggerating, the house had hit the market probably 5 minutes prior to that. Like it had literally just popped up. And I submitted a request and I got a response back saying, yeah, we're already under contract. So that's the craziness of the market right now. But, you can go out again. That's kind of the generic of what we do on the buyer side, without talking about all the paperwork and making sure that, you're negotiating on your client's best interest. But the market is also crazy right now. So people are doing a lot more through social media and some of the other ways to market themselves. But as it pertains to kind of finding an agency and who do you want to deal with, then, reach out to your friends and family, anyone that you know that may have a license, and ask them, what do they like about their broker? What do they not like about the broker? Because everybody is not created equally. There are some brokers that will not bring on new agents because they don't have time to babysit you. So you may have to find an agency that kind of caters to new people and that can give you the training and everything else that you need. Because when you take that exam to get your license, they are not teaching you they're not teaching you real estate at all. They're teaching you how to pass that exam. That's it. You're going to talk about what's on the exam so you can pass the exam and get licensed. You will then learn real estate, hopefully, from the broker that you're up underneath of, or from that mentor that broker may assign you to. And, here in Georgia, don't be afraid if the broker's not working out, leave. They can't hold you hostage there. There's thousands of brokers out here. So you just find one until you can fit in where you can get in and you feel comfortable. And, if you don't feel comfortable, you can always leave and go to another brokerage.
Okay. What would you say is the difference between an inexperienced real estate agent versus an experienced real estate agent? Like, how would I know I'm ready to buy a house? How do I know who to hire? Because some people, they go through a referral and then they stop there and they don't really go out through the sales process and vet, these agents.
So honestly, there's no way to, other than getting referrals and looking at people's reviews and asking people, like, if you had a friend who just purchased a house, even in the groups that I'm in, and you get this all the time where someone's like, hey, I'm looking for an agent. Who do you guys recommend? I always respond and tell the person, listen, check with your friends, family, and coworkers first. Somebody in your circle just purchased a house and they can probably recommend you to someone they had a good experience with. If you have no one like that, then reach out to people, because of course everyone in the group is like, hey, I'm an agent, I can help you, da 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 da. I try and give them information so that they're not getting inundated with all this extra information that's not going to help them. And then I tell them that if all else fails and you still can't find anyone, you are welcome to, reach back out to me. I'll give you as much information. I really am that broker who's like, let me give you some information so you can make the best informed decision. If you then opt to work with me, that's fantastic. But I'm also a broker who, if you wake up tomorrow and say, hey, Danny, my cousin's auntie, mom, twice removed cousin, got her real estate license, and I really need to work with them because they're family, I'm going to be like, bye, I'm good. Like, have them call me if they have any questions. I know that's not the norm, but that's just me. So I would tell you to definitely reach out to the people in your circle, because all agents are not created equally. And if you come across an agent and you just don't feel like that agent is responsive and can't handle your needs, then find someone else. You just send them a little notification in writing and let them know, like, hey, this isn't going to work. I'm terminating this contract. And then find someone else.
Okay. So I am a person that have a corporate job, and I decide I want to get my real estate license. So I get my real estate license on top of work. Work is stressful. Work is kicking my butt because of all the hours that I want. And I want to leverage real estate to get out of that corporate job. What are some top mistakes that new real estate agents typically make that can be avoided?
I think the biggest thing is once you get your license, take the time to understand what you can and cannot do. Because when you're taking that exam and going through the course, everything's real quick. They just want you to learn it enough to pass the test. But you need to know what the law says, because you don't want to get yourself caught up in a legal situation where you think that what you said was okay, only to find out that no, you violated federal law. You can't say certain things, or you told one client, hey, I need a pre-approval letter. And then the next client called you, and because you're like, oh, they're a doctor, you didn't ask for a pre-approval letter. You just discriminated against your other client. So you want to make sure that you treat everybody fairly across the board. When I get a new client in, they can tell me, hey, I want to be in Gwinnett County. And I'm like, okay, that's great. I'm going to send you properties for all 5 metro counties so you can compare apples to apples. I know you said you want to be in Gwinnett, but I'm going to send you some stuff for DeKalb, for Cobb, just so you get a good feel of like, hey, this is what this is what's on the market in Cobb versus DeKalb. I know they said they want to be in, that they want to be in Gwinnett. I'm really doing it to protect me so that that buyer can't come back later on and say, oh, she steered me to, DeKalb, the east side, where all the Black people live at. And I'm like, no, I sent you properties for all of Metro Atlanta. And I do that with every single client, regardless, because again, there's some things that you just get in the habit of doing so that you protect yourself. Probably the other thing I would tell new agents is, if you're not sure, ask your broker. Like ultimately this license, the broker is responsible for your license. So everything you do on behalf of the broker. I see a lot of young ladies and I'm in a lot of female related like real estate groups. And I see stuff posted all the time and I'm thinking, Lord have mercy. I need to call your broker. Like somebody needs to tell you like, no, you can't do those things. And they may sound perfectly normal to the everyday person, but they're not when it comes to what license law says. So definitely take the time, even though you get your license, take the time to learn the systems, because you'll get a transaction and now all of a sudden you got this transaction and you don't know how to input it into the system because you never bothered to take, while you had downtime, you never bothered to learn the systems that you're then going to have to use. Have someone give you a copy of a contract and go over it. 9 times out of 10, most contracts are relatively the same, but you're going to get that one contract that throws you for a loop. And you don't want to be sitting there thinking, well, I just don't know. And, I always say it's not a problem until it's a problem. So in real estate, you want to make sure you don't create problems. And more importantly, words matter. I had a situation one time where we had a buyer. This is one of my agents' buyers. And she wanted a tree cut down. Well, the contract did say that the seller would cut down the tree before closing. And the seller did cut down the tree 3 feet. It didn't say that the tree needed to be cut down to the ground, within 6 inches of the ground. And so, of course, the buyer wanted the tree cut completely down. We agreed to have the tree cut down. As the broker, we were going to pay to have the tree cut down after closing. Like we're not going to spend money prior to closing. And the buyer ultimately decided she didn't want to close, and she didn't close. But looking back on that particular contract, truly, now when I write stuff, I'm real specific. If I need the tree cut down, I need the tree branch limbs cut within, 2 inches of the trunk of the tree. Like you have to be real specific because again, it's not a problem until it's a problem. And on this particular case, the seller was right. I mean, we know what he was trying to do, but theoretically, and what that contract said was cut the tree down. And he did cut the tree down. He just didn't cut it all the way down. And we were stuck with it. So words matter. Words definitely matter in real estate.
Let me ask you this, like HOAs. If I have not received my HOA when it comes to buying a house and I've lived into it forever, is it my responsibility to
It is
to
your
go get that
responsibility.
to go get that HOA? Okay, yeah, because my aunt has an issue with that, and I was like, I wonder, because you're talking about contracts and how specific that it is.
Well, just keep in mind that, the buyer it's kind of, buyer beware. Like the buyer has a period to do their due diligence, right? So if you know that community is in an HOA community, and a lot of times it'll tell you in the system that there's an HOA, you want to make sure that you get that paperwork during your due diligence period. I write in my contracts that all required disclosures are due within 48 hours of binding agreement date. So within 48 hours, I should have all the HOA documents and everything, so that, because sometimes they do have some communities have some crazy restrictions that, you may not be aware of. And it may not seem like a big deal until they tell you that you can't build a playground, a wooden playground in your backyard, that it violates the HOA, and you have children and you're used to having a playground. And now all of a sudden you can't build a playground. So you definitely want to make sure you get those.
Oh man, such a detailed process. So I know when I bought my house, I think it may have taken like 6 houses for me to look at, for me to be sure about the house that I wanted. And I think like my agent, I think she did a pretty good job, as far as she was just like, I think she said something along the lines of, about a third house on which one you want. And I don't know if it was a tactic to make me feel like I was forced to decide or whatever. I don't know, but granted, it took about 6. It took about 6, because what I wanted after the first day, I realized
that's not what you wanted.
Yeah, because it was like, I think I was looking at houses. I really wanted a house. Then I had my dad on video, because he's good at, like, he knows about the handy part about houses, right? So he was just like, look at the siding and look at this to check the pipes. And I was like, whoa, that's too much. Like, I don't know nothing about fixing things to where I want to worry about that. And then I was looking at houses, and it was like the older houses. I didn't like how their closets were, because I guess older houses versus modern houses, they're all built different, and how the bathrooms, like a lot of older houses have like this ugly tile, but some people like that. So you find out after looking for, I think it was like the 6th house, I was like, okay, I know exactly what I wanted. But I do know also, when new agents, as far as time, and if you're working a corporate job, one of the things you don't have time for is driving around, talking to clients that haven't made an official commitment. So my first question is, what do people truly need a real estate agent for? And then the second one is, I am a new agent. I don't want to keep driving around to clients that can't make up their mind. And how can I how can I get them to the decision on buying or not buying?
So that's a 2-part question. So as far as trying to get them to decide on the top type of house, I said that I send my clients everything that's in the system. Like literally, if it's 2,000 houses, you're about to get 2,000 houses in Metro Atlanta, right? Now, this is pre-COVID, before the market got crazy, and you could still find houses. Because again, what you think you like, sometimes that's not what you like until you actually see it. So once a buyer is approved, and I mean, you got an actual approval letter, not the buyer who calls you up and says, hey, I want to go and look at some houses. Can you show me some houses this Saturday? And I say, okay, have you got an approval letter? Well, no, but I know I can get qualified. Well, I'm gonna need you to get an approval letter because this is not looky-loo time. And we're not, now if you just want me to drive you around so you can get a good feel and you don't want to have an approval letter, I charge a fee for that. My gas is not free. So honestly, and of course, most people are like, oh, well, never mind. Okay, well, then that's good. Go on. But I want to work with, I work with buyers that have signed buyer broker agreements with me. In theory, it's the law. If I'm going to take you out and show you properties and engage with you, I'm going to have you sign that buyer broker agreement, because if not, then I can't represent you. I can't take you out and show you properties and give you advice, because now you're acting as my client when you're truly a customer. If you just want, for sale by owner and you want me to do your paperwork, well, that's a transaction and I can do that for you. But then you're not my client. So when you become my client, I have a fiduciary, obligation to you. And that kind of gives you a higher level of services. So it's kind of like, you can go to the attorney, or you can go to the person who's still in law school who may know some stuff, but it's not the same. It's not the same. So I don't work with people that have not signed that agreement with me. I'm not putting you in my car. I'm not taking you out. We're not going anywhere if you're still on the fence about who you want to work with, because that tells me that you're probably working with 3 or 4 other agents and you don't care. And you're like, whoever can find me a house the quickest and first is who I'm going to go with. So technically and legally, you should have a buyer broker agreement signed. That will keep you from wasting all this time, because say you take up this person out and you show them all these houses, and then the next day they call their cousin who just got back in town, and one of the houses you took them to, they go and put it under contract. Realistically, they weren't your client. So you've just wasted your time. There's not a lot that you can do about it. And there's not a lot you can do about it because your broker is probably not going to pursue it. It's always the broker that would then have to file something or try to go after the person. But in this case, you don't even have an agreement with the person. So you've just wasted your time. And I know that new buyers, new agents that get so excited and it's like, oh my God, it's my first client. No, slow down, get them to sign that buyer broker agreement. Make sure that the other reason you want to do all of this is because there's a lot of danger out here. You want to verify who this person is. Somebody cannot just call me up and be like, hey, can you show me a property today? And you called me off the internet. I don't know you. No, I cannot show you a property today. You can send me verification. You can get it, approved by a lender, because at least at that point, the lender is saying, and typically I like it to be a lender that I have some kind of relationship with, so I can verify that you are in fact who you say you are. There've been several cases of, agents being attacked because they went out and met a stranger and then didn't tell anyone that, that they were going to meet this person to show them property. And they didn't know. All of the people that I deal with are typically coming to me through some form of a referral or through my housing group, my Facebook group. So I don't get a lot of just complete strangers that are just random. You called me off the internet, with the exception of my NACA people. Like when I say I'm the NACA queen and I do a ton of NACA transactions, I do. So I do get a lot of people that are like, hey, I'm in the NACA program and I found your information online and I read all your reviews. I get a lot of people that way. But at that point, they've been verified by NACA, like you uploaded all of your information. So I know that you are exactly who you say you are. So that will eliminate all of that. Now, the other part of the question had to do with, if you're working a 9 to 5, how do you navigate all of that? Or how do you make that transition if you want to leave your 9 to 5 and go into real estate? Technology. The internet is your friend. Everything can be, you want to build up your social media presence. You want to use Instagram. YouTube, a podcast, your website. You can do all of that. There's a ton of other services, and most people find their house online. Like I'll tell a person, listen, drive the neighborhood before we even make an appointment to go and see. And I just had that happen where she wanted to see a property. We were supposed to see it yesterday, but she happened to drive the neighborhood and called me and was like, yeah, I don't like that house. You can cancel that appointment. It was all the way out in Loganville. So I'm glad that she actually
way out there.
Went out there. Way out. It was going to be a 5 o'clock appointment too. So, I was going to have to leave
during traffic. It's like a 2-hour drive.
Pretty much. I had already scheduled some other stuff that I was going to be able to do in that area. But she happened to drive the area and was like, yeah, the driveway sits down the hill. I don't want to see it. So we were able to cancel it. But use technology. And then, with some new agents, being on a real estate team may be the best option for you coming into real estate, because you get to be a part of a team. You get to learn the market. You get to learn real estate, and you're not trying to figure it out on your own. Now, and it also means you're splitting your commissions and things with your team. However, it might not necessarily be a bad thing to initially do that as you learn the process first, and then decide like, hey, I'm gonna be a standalone agent. Because keep in mind, when you first get licensed, no matter who you are in the state of Georgia, you will place that license underneath of a broker. So even when you pass your exam, right, you have to, it's not an option. So when you pass your exam and they tell you, hey, congratulations, you passed, your license just sits there until you sign up with a broker, and the broker then tells the state to activate that license up underneath of their brokerage. So you can't get licensed and just be like, well, I'm gonna go out here and not be under a broker. It doesn't work like that. You have to place your license under a broker. And then after 3 years, you can, within your third year, you can apply and become your own broker if you desire to.
Now, I heard in the Metro Atlanta area, granted, this podcast is for everywhere. But speaking of Atlanta, because it's one of the biggest, cities in the US, and it's constantly growing.
Right.
I once heard, and I don't know how true this is, that it's like over 100,000 licensed real estate agents or something here. Have you ever heard of that? Or
yeah, there used to be a sign when you came down 85 South that Metro Brokers had, and I don't know if it's still there, but it would list like the number of agents in Metro Atlanta, and it would also list like the number of listings. They may have taken it down just because the market's so crazy right now. But yeah, there's a ton of agents, but this is what I tell people. There was a ton of makeup out there before Fenty and Rihanna didn't stop.
Right.
So people do business with you in real estate because of you.
But I guess even with that is that even if it is 100,000 or whatever crazy number,
there's only
what
one
percentage of it is actually working? What percentage of those agents are actually working?
I would say probably less than half of that. So there may be, 96,000 agents, but, at any given time, probably half of, and don't quote me on it, half of those people probably are inactive, or they may continue to make sure their license is active, but they may not be selling anything. They may not be actively out here doing real estate. Okay. So even with that large number, there's still enough people for you to make a decent living. The average price of houses right now in Metro Atlanta has risen to like 300,000, right? So if all you did were 10 people a year, you could still make really, really good money.
Okay. So somebody could probably do like 10 people a year, even part-time?
Yeah. I worked part-time as a real estate agent for 10 plus years before, because I retired from the government in 2018. So all that time prior to that, I always had a full-time 9 to 5. And it never kept me from being able to show properties because most people are at work during the day. So guess when they want to see a property? In the evenings or typically on the weekends. Like people are like, oh, I want to go out on Saturday. Now the market has changed because again, it's a seller's market. So you do need to be in a position where, hey, as soon as something comes on the market, you got to get out there and see it. So you got to be a little more aggressive than what we were used to, because Atlanta was like the land of milk and honey. Girl, I'll go and sell a couple of properties and make some money and sell a property. It was very, very easy. And I was able to build a really unique niche around the NACA program. And I always tell people I don't work for NACA. I'm an outside broker who sends her buyers through the NACA program. And even though I'm a veteran, I purchased my house through NACA back in 2009. So I know this program inside and out, and I really like the program. But because people just kind of knew, oh, call Marvette, she does NACA, she knows NACA. I literally have a pipeline of about 2,000 people somewhere in going through the NACA process. So I just always had somebody was going to close. And I'd get agents that would say, oh, I don't like the NACA program. And I heard this. And, most of the information that they were quoting, I'm like, you just made that up because nobody told you that. And it's not on the internet. Like, where'd you get that information from? Because it's wrong. But for me, it meant that I always had a pipeline, because some people might take a year to get through NACA. Some people might take 2 years. Some people might get through it in 90 days. But I've always had somebody in the NACA program, which means at some point in time, someone is going to call and say, hey, I'm approved. I'm ready to go. And I'm like, okay, well, let's go find a house. I have a NACA closing coming up this Monday. So, it's a conventional loan program, and, they 100% financing, no money down. Bank of America pays all of your closing costs. You pay for taxes and insurance at closing. So it's a good, solid program. So there's tons of different things that you can become an expert in and kind of build yourself a niche in terms of, what's going on in Metro Atlanta. I think it's a great time for millennials because you guys are at that age where everybody's getting married and everybody's trying to buy a house, right? So that means that all your friends, if you just look at your Facebook friends, right? Let's just say you've maxed out and you got 5,000 Facebook friends, probably, let's say 50% of them are millennials. That's, 2,500 people that you can tap into. Somebody's going to buy a house, right? And every person that buys a house, you should be able to make, or every client you get, you should be able to make $50,000 off of that person. So if they buy a house,
how much you said, how much?
50,000, not necessarily off of one transaction, but off of them referring them to your friends. So I had a buyer recently, a buyer and a seller. I sold her house 10 years ago through the NACA program. When it was time for her to sell her house, she called me and was like, I'm ready to sell and I'm ready to buy. So off of the first transaction, I remember her house was originally like $150,000, so I made 3% off of that. Here we are 10 years later, she's selling again. I made another 3% when she sold the house, and I made another 3% when she purchased her new house. So all in all, I made over $25,000 in commission just off of that one person. So off of that one person, I got 3 transactions. Now they all happen to be her transactions, that were her transactions. But she's also referred other people to me. So I'll probably make another $15,000 or $20,000 off of the referrals. Wow. So yeah, millennials, everyone's getting married right about now. They're ready to settle down, get houses. So it's a good market, because if you guys don't get licensed, then they still got to buy a house. They're going to call somebody. Yeah. So I always say they can.
People are getting older,
Yes, they can call you or they'll call someone else. So why let that money go past? Why let that money go past?
Exactly. And it's interesting you say that, because I think in many industries, people have a challenge with referrals, right? So one of the things that you mentioned is you mentioned niche, and also you mentioned social media.
Right.
Or the internet, right? Also, actually, before even getting into that, you said like if I'm a new agent, get my license, one of the things that I should do is really understand the law. First, understand the law, then the process. Now, am I getting the process from my broker, and how long should it take for me to understand the law?
So the law aspect is really like, literally, I would tell so in the state of Georgia, once you get your license, within your first year, you have to do an additional 25 hours, right? Within your first year. I tell new agents, as soon as you get your license, go ahead and do your 25 hours and knock it out the way. Because let's say you do your 25 hours and you don't pass that exam, you no longer have a license. So you want to go ahead and knock it out. There's some basic agents are required to take license law. So immediately, once you get your license, sign up for your license law class. It's going to go over some of the basic ins and outs, but all agents are required to do that. Within a certain license period, they have to decide to do that. If an agent decides to become a realtor, which is, people call everyone a realtor, that's not the case. You have to pay dues and fees to the National Association of Real Estate, to NAR, in order to become a realtor, even though the public, the general public, is like, oh, that's a realtor. You can be a licensed agent, salesperson, and you can be a licensed broker and just be a broker and not be a realtor. So you have to then choose to become a realtor, but they have a ton of training. And even in Georgia, we have, at least in Metro Atlanta, we have MLS and we have FMLS. And even with those two entities, there's a ton of training and there's a ton of free training. On average, I take about 2 free classes a month. And, sometimes it's just random stuff, not necessarily stuff that is like, oh, I need to know this, but I will sit through at least 2 courses a month and do. So I probably have about 80 hours worth of training in the system. I'm only required to do 36. But I'm always learning.
Keep investing.
Right. I keep investing. And because there's tons of courses out here that are free. So there's no excuse for you not to get all this training when someone's always offering free continuing, CEs. And sometimes the training is just the training and it's not for continuing educational hours. Take advantage of it. And then sit down with your broker. I would tell a new agent, sit down with your broker and either see if it's going to be the broker. If it's a big company, it won't be the broker. They'll tell you, oh, we can assign you to a mentor who's going to charge you a fee out of your, upcoming real estate commission. So they may get a split off of your first 3 transactions. But see if that mentor or whoever you're assigned to can walk you through a real estate transaction just like you're a buyer. Take you through the whole process as though you're a buyer. So I take my agents out and we go and look at new construction, or I'll go and show them a property just like they're a buyer, so that they understand that when you meet with your client, this is everything that you need to go through. It's no different than anything else you learn. Until you've done it, you're not going to know how to do it. Like, you literally need to have someone walk you through it so that they can show you exactly what it is that you need to do. And I think that a lot of people, it's like when you see some training online and or someone is telling you how to do something and they skip step 1 and 2. They just make the assumption that you knew you needed to turn your computer on. Well, sometimes you don't. Like, you didn't tell me that part. So you didn't get to step 3 because you missed 1 and 2 to begin with. But definitely have that individual walk you through the entire process. As far as the law aspect, there's definitely some classes and things that you could sit through. It's more along the lines, the big stuff is that you do not want to violate federal law and violate someone's civil rights as it pertains to fair housing. And a lot of agents don't understand that you have to treat everyone the same. Like, people wouldn't know that if you're my new buyer, I cannot ask you, where are you from? Where you from, Danny?
I'm from Detroit.
But the thing is that let's say that you were from the Middle East, and I've asked you, you got an accent. So I'm like, oh, where are you from? It sounds innocent.
And I say the Middle East.
Right. Or, you're like, oh, I'm from Egypt, or I'm from wherever. And then we go and look at a house, and let's say you submit for this house, and then you don't get the house. And for whatever reason, you just decide that I didn't get you this house, because you were from the Middle East. Well, guess what? They're probably going to win, even if there was nothing honestly behind it, because I still asked. So they don't know, am I discriminating against you because now you told me, where you were from. So sometimes it can be little things. And, most of this stuff they do, right? They go over it, when you're going through your real estate school. And then it's like people get their exam and they just forget everything that they were, that they were told. And they give you a ton of examples and things that, again, you would think, wow, I never thought about it like that. They always give this example in school that I remember this from my broker exam, that the lady had told her client, the client wanted to be in a condo, right? And she was supposed to show them some condos. And when they got there, they had wanted to see a suite that was on, say, the 10th floor. And when they got there, the agent was like, oh, well, I decided to show you the one on the first floor because, you guys have small kids. That may make sense. Oh, wow.
Just a whole assumption.
Right. That may make sense. Like they were trying to be nice and she was thinking about the woman's kids, but you just violated federal law. So you've discriminated against this person, or assuming that, because somebody is in a wheelchair that, they don't want to see this particular house because, well, it didn't look wheelchair accessible, or, it's up on the, on the 5th floor. Well, that's not for us to decide. You show the buyer or the seller, whatever it is that they want to see. So you just want to make sure that you're not doing things that actually violate federal law to begin with, or even state law at that point.
Wow, that is definitely a lot to it that you don't think about, because I heard that the real estate exam, that thing is tough. So definitely not something I'm personally interested in.
No, I tell you, I mean, you have, you sell insurance and you had to take that exam. So if you can pass that test, then you can pass the real estate exam. It's but
you know what, that test is easy. That test is easy. It's the investment.
The same way that you think it's easy. Because I used to have my insurance license like back in my 20s, right, when I lived in Maryland. But for a lot of people, we think it's easy. And other people are like, oh my God, it's so hard. It's just a lot of memorization. Like the big thing with real estate is that you don't know what's going to be on the exam. So you have to memorize everything. You literally have to memorize it, put it into context, so that when you see it on the exam, it makes sense. So you're literally studying everything, because again, you don't know what they're gonna, you don't know what they're gonna
have. That's why I say the insurance exam was easy, because you pretty much the practice test and all of that is what you're going to see on the exam. They're just going to pick for the pull of questions. Now, when I got my investment license, that thing was difficult. I think
I didn't realize you had your investment license. Okay.
Oh yeah, that's why I'm like, I actually my focus on my business is mostly investments, teaching millennials how to invest.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's definitely the main thing. All right, so you're providing just a wealth of knowledge and perspective, and I see the fact that you invest so much in yourself, like it shines through not just years of experience. So you could tell people have years of experience and they just know stuff, but the fact that you constantly invest is very admirable. It's actually inspiring me, because I'm like, man, I got really step it up, like I'm always learning, but you just inspired me to do more. Now, one thing I know on your social media says, like, I don't know if it's like $1 million babe or something. And then you mentioned niche and also social media.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with real estate, we just went over the whole process of selling. You know, you're in a sales business, right?
Mhm.
But what most people fail to realize, and it's not even just in real estate, it's in other industries where now you have to market yourself.
Yes.
Everyone does not come with skills of marketing. I remember even when I first started in my business, I did not know marketing, so I did it all wrong. Probably to the point it annoyed people. People probably don't want to deal with me. You know, I mean, I think I've gotten better, you know, to where
Yes.
those people was able to come back because
Right.
I identified what I was doing wrong and I was willing to learn from that lesson. So
Right.
with your social media, I know you have a blog,
Mhm.
you have a Facebook group, and you also
Yes.
mentioned niche. How
Yes.
did someone teach you like that? And how did you figure out what your niche was? And even with the social media game, like how did you understand marketing?
So again, it's all about education. So my background is I attended the Art Institute for Web Development. So that's what my undergrad was in.
Okay.
But with everything else, you just YouTube University. Google is your friend. You mimic the people that are doing well. So, I learned this from Maya Angelou years and years ago, is that fine. And I probably was, when I say years ago, I mean, I was probably in my 20s, right? And she said, find people that you respect and you want to emulate and take parts of those people and become those people. So if you want to be a a good person, and you want to be a business person, and you want to be all these things that you admire in other people, then you just emulate those people. But the same holds true with marketing and business, is that you see what other people are doing online. Nothing is brand new out here. Everything is being reinvented, rehashed, tweaked. But unless you're some kind of neural brain surgeon, you really ain't creating anything new. So you got to take what's already on the market and just use it to your advantage so you can become whoever you want to become. And, with social media, everything is out here on the internet. So you pretty much have access to everyone, even if you don't have access to them. They probably have a YouTube video somewhere. They may have, XYZ that you can take a look at and be like, okay, this person did that. So I'm going to incorporate, this into my business. One of the things that I do each day is I try to help at least one person. And it may be something as, miscellaneous as someone needing me seeing on Facebook that someone asked a question. And I just go on Google and pull a couple of links and say, hey, you were asking about such and such.
Providing value.
Right. So you always want to provide value. You always want to come from a place of being, I always tell people, come from a place of being a go-giver. You want to be a giver in order to be a receiver. And because you never know who you're talking to. I try to, treat people the way that I would want them to treat the people around me, not even treat me, because I'm a Leo. So, sometimes we just don't care. But I would like to think, right, that, you treat people in the manner that you would want them to treat your friends. That if I send someone to you, I would want my friends to have a really good experience. So if you approach people from the avenue of I'm going to be a giver, then I always say that the universe is going to reward you. It shows up every single day. As it pertains to trying to identify your niche. So what you saw on my Facebook page is actually a course that I teach called Niche Specificity. So I help people to identify what their niche is, regardless of the business that they're in. What their niche is and how do you zone in on your niche. Like your niche may simply be millennials and getting them to do investments, right? So that can be a very specific niche. It could be bond junkies or, something even options trading. You can break it down even further than that. But once you identify your niche, then don't be afraid to embrace it. Like people call me the NACA queen, and probably gets on my nerves because I'm like, you guys do not do a whole lot of commercial real estate and other stuff. But I'm at this point, it's like I'm fine with it. If that's how people want to associate me, hey, I got a NACA closing on Monday and someone else under contract. So it definitely, is keeping the lights on over here at the manor. So, whatever you want your niche to be, somebody's already done it. So just figure out who has already done it and then copy that. I listened to this one financial podcast when I'm in my car. And the gentleman, I can't remember who it was, but they were interviewing someone, and he was a well-known writer who's written a book on like the top financial people in the world, right? And so he literally followed, the Buffetts of the world. And there was a guy he interviewed, and I think his name was Hamish. He interviewed him, and he's like a hedge fund friggin' guru. And he asked him, like, hey, how did you get to where you're at? And, like you were asking me, like, how did you learn all of this stuff? Where did you get this from? Or how did you get to this point? And he said, I copied Warren Buffett. He was like, there's not shit original about me per se. He was like, I figured out what Warren was doing and I reverse engineered it. So Warren likes compound interest. I knew that that's what I needed to do. And he said, literally, I just mimicked the stuff that he was doing and became very, very good at it. So he was like, it's not so much that you have to be original, because you'll still be your own original person, but people have already done what you're trying to do. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel and start from scratch. Just build a better wheel, tweak it a little bit and make it your own. And you got a whole new, car.
Because it's enough money out here to be made.
Yes.
That's the thing. People feel like there's a limit to money, but I mean, we hear it all the time from government printing, and that's a whole nother conversation. But there's an abundance of money. There's an abundance of opportunity. I think when I was in Afghanistan, I met this army sergeant. Didn't really care for the guy that much. But the one thing that I did walk away from the dude was he was using an example. He was like, look at iPhone and you have Android. And then I think at the time you had Indiegogo and GoFundMe. It was just like, you look at all these different industries. And to some of us, it seemed like it's very saturated, but it's not. Because you're in that space. But in reality, it's billions of people. And you also said something powerful. You were just like, everybody look at you as a NACA queen, but in reality, you do other things. And that people fear that if they niche down, that niche is going to keep them from making business in other areas. Like you're a specialist for whatever reason, but I'm not going to say no to this money. If people are going to know me for this, NACA queen, guess what? You're still getting business because everyone knows that they can come to you for doing NACA. So, and then like your Facebook group, you said 17, how many?
17,000 people. So we're looking for housing in Georgia is a Facebook group that I run that deals the goal is to transition people from rentals into home ownership. That's the ultimate goal. But in the meantime, we provide links, resources, everything housing related. And we also try to provide education so that they don't find themselves in the same cycle of, now I'm homeless, I got an eviction, my credit is bad. Because you realize that all of those things tie into housing. And you can't put a Band-Aid on one thing and think it's going to fix everything else. You really have to get to the source of, how do we take you from being in this position so that you're not in this position a year from now?
Wow. So how do you grow a group to 17,000 people?
One person at a time. So like literally one person.
Did you add them and then stop adding at a certain point?
What happens is that I probably added, say, 10 people to the group and started posting all housing related stuff. Whether it was resources or, where to get your light bill paid. Now, and again, our goal is to transition you into being a homeowner. So we post stuff that is homeowner related as well to get you on track. But as I would add people, then I may add you, and you may invite 2 or 3 people to the group. And then once they're in the group, they're going to invite people. So I checked, and right now I have 300 pending people I need to go through the system and approve. But literally, you do it one person at a time. We've had the group for about, I think we're going into maybe our 3rd year. So 3 years in.
Wow, that's really good.
And we don't approve everyone. Like I literally, because some people are scam people. Some people just joined Facebook yesterday. If you recently just joined Facebook, then we don't, I automatically decline you. Some people don't answer the questions, or some people are trying to be in a group so that they can sell other products. And we really try to make sure that it is housing related.
Gotcha. Now, do you monitor the group and add everyone, or you have a team of other people that help now?
Nope, I monitor. So I do have some moderators, but I'm the only one that can approve people. And normally, usually it's not that many people, just because I try to go through the system like every day and get everyone approved. But I did not have time last week and I was busy. So now we're up to 300 people. But by Sunday, I will have gone through and, approved everyone. And every person that, we approve, then we send them a message. Like I do it in blocks of 50 because Facebook will let you send a message to 50 people. So then we welcome them to the group. We have a welcome letter. We kind of tell them the basics.
Wait,
of the group.
You message them individually and with the welcome letter, or?
You can, so within the group, after you've gotten like to say 49 people, there's a link where you can message all your new members for the week. So then I just send them it's a post, or you could post and it'll automatically tag all 50 of those individuals. And then within tagging them there, I just send them, we have a website. So I send them to the website for their welcome letter and they can get all their basics. So far,
that's crazy. So I started a group, this year, last year, I added people, but the part that you said, like you constantly started adding value. First I started adding value, but I'm like, man, this is taking away time. And then now
it's a lot of time. It's
a
job. You know what it is that you have to get organized and plan for your group. You got to plan for your group. Like you got to.
Yeah, because I know they have the posts you could set for the future or something, right?
Right. You could do some future posts. You can have like, depending on what the tone of the group is, you might have, money Mondays and where you're posting, something new that's a money related tip. I would tell you to do things for each day. And then you'll also see some people that once you identify the people who don't post the crazy stuff, you can pre-approve that person and let them know like, hey, I'm going to pre-approve you to be able to post. But I also tell those people, please don't let me have to remove you and block you because now you done posted something that is inappropriate or, not appropriate for the group. So you just have to manage the group.
I think the challenge I think the challenge that I've had too is like because social people like don't realize social media is a lot of work when it comes to a business because you got to constantly be posting. So my thing is what makes me suffer is that I got Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Now a whole group, the group I'm assuming has to be different than all these other platforms.
No.
If I'm constantly, so you saying it's still be the same thing?
So let's just say using my group as an example, that now that particular group is housing related. So I may go in and already pre-do. It means that I might get up on Saturday morning when everyone else is still asleep. And again, I may write 20 different posts that I know I'm about to use coming up. So I already have some stuff that I know that I want to post about and I'll go in the group. The other stuff is that people in the group post stuff too. So as they see stuff, and this is a housing group. So people are posting about, rentals or, government assistance or, where can I find this, that, and the other. All of that stuff can be, in already done in to pop up and tell me that I have a post, and I just kind of click and okay, I can approve this one. Now in my other group for Brag Differently, which deals more with my other business entity, in that group, I'm able to do my posts. So when I go on Facebook and say post to my Facebook business page, I create one post and I can send that post to Facebook, and I can send it to Instagram as well. And I can go ahead and pre-do those posts so I can put it on a schedule. But it does mean that I may sit down on a Saturday and literally put together 30 different posts for the upcoming month. And then I go ahead and program them out. So is it time consuming? I'd rather spend 2 or 3 hours doing that rather than every day I'm like, what am I going to post about today?
Yes.
So you gotta
Yes.
set it up. I will tell you this, there's a young lady I follow on Instagram called Jasmine Stark, and she has
I heard of her, but I don't know why.
she does she's a photographer, but I want to say she does curated social, and she kind of goes through the process of just kind of telling you like, hey, this is how you plan out your 30 days. So if you at least plan 30 days in advance, then you're not someone like, oh my God, I got to post today. What am I going to post about? No, you got to sit down, take the time out, put together your post. Canva is your friend. There's already templates on there that you can use. I did a template this morning, or I did a post this morning for my credit site. And I just went in and used one of the Canva templates that was already in there. Like it was talking about fitness. I found someone that was fitness related and I changed my colors. But other than that, I really didn't change the template. It worked perfectly today. So take advantage of the templates and the things that are out there that make your life easier. Sometimes we have to take a step back and just be like, hold up, wait a minute. You got all this stuff at your fingertips. Use the stuff that you already have. Like, don't overthink it. Jasmine talks about, like, she likes coffee. So she said, at least once a week, you're going to get a post that has to do with coffee, because everyone knows that she's a coffee drinker. So she's going to post a coffee cup, a coffee, something dealing with coffee. Well, that takes up one spot out the week. And then all of her other stuff, she just kind of plans out, whatever she tells you to do all the national holidays, all the crazy stuff, Happy Donut Day. Like there's a calendar out there somewhere on Google that tells you what all these things are. That's going to take up some of that stuff you'll already know. So if you plan it out, it definitely makes it a little bit easier.
So my last question, like we talked a lot about the business side of real estate, which I love, that you did. You taught me a lot of things. Now, I guess like on the sales side, from my financial advice, I've been telling a lot of people, because I know the people right now that's been messaging me, hey, I'm ready to start saving money so I can buy a house, which, I'm like, I can help you with that. A lot of times this is a matter of budgeting. The taxes could be kicking their butt to, like at the same time, if you're a millennial, which I typically know, because I'm a millennial myself, you just got to be smart with your money. You got to start investing into something, right?
Right.
So knowing that I have that market, they're like, I'm ready to buy a house. And I've been advising them, basically saying like, hey, maybe it's a good thing that you can't buy a house now, because the market is crazy. Most people, I feel, that are closing on houses, they're going to eventually be under. Like, we don't know when the market is changing, but they're overspending on a house. Now, and also, I do know that there's a lot of snakish real estate agents out here also. Throughout the years, I've met so many real estate agents that do not care at all about their clients. So knowing all of that, and you just said not really. So I feel like people are like, the houses, they're super duper priced right now. It's crazy. And even if the market shifts, it may go down a little bit. Or it may go down and keep going up. I don't know. But do you feel like people, if they were to buy a house right now, they're going to be under?
Absolutely not. So, and here's why. And there's really and I'll send you this link on Facebook. There's a really good article in the Atlanta Business Chronicle, where they interviewed a local real estate person. I can't think of the guy's name. And they asked him about the market and if he thought that a bubble was coming. And he said no. And I agree with him. And here's why. We have been living in the land of milk and honey for a long time in Atlanta. I'm in Decatur. I'm in a 6-bedroom, 6-bath house, full finished basement, 5,500 square feet of space. Interest rate is 2% fixed. And at the time I paid $212 for my house, sitting on a ton of equity, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you used to be able to buy, you could come to Atlanta and just live the good life. Like you didn't have to make a whole lot of money and you could still have the McMansion and the whole 9 yards. So when you looked at, and they used to have memes out there that would show like, this is what you get in California. This is what you get in New York. And then they would show Atlanta and be this big, gigantic mansion, right? And be like, it's
Do you feel like that's changing here?
Well, I think that it's been so low for so long and people have gotten so accustomed to it being so low, that people were just like, that's just the normal. That's the normal. No, that was abnormal. Because then when you looked at the rest of the country and people were paying these, when you think about all the construction, and I'm talking about commercial construction, all the businesses, all the stuff that was going on in Atlanta, right? You typically, we're competing with higher markets, say a San Francisco who has outrageous rents. And then you could come to Atlanta and be like, yeah, I could get a 2-bedroom for $1,200. You can't do that anywhere else in the country for the most part, right? So now that the market, because it's all about supply and demand, the market will bear what the market will bear. And there's enough people that have moved to Atlanta and are still moving to Atlanta where, a $1,600 or $1,700 a month mortgage is, that may for a lot of people still be 2 people, coming together, but they can afford that and they can afford that and be comfortable with it. And the rates are super, super low. So because rates are so low, you can buy a little bit more house. But I don't think that, there's not enough right now. It is a seller's market. There is not enough houses for all the people that are looking. D.R. Horton has like a list of 2,000 people on their list. Like you go into new construction, they got a 2,000 person waiting list on houses. So, and that's just the people that put their names on the list. That's not even the rest of the people that are actually looking. So when you talk about all of your millennial friends that are currently living in apartments, they're like, hey, we're ready. We're getting married. My son went to a wedding last week, and now that they're married, now they're going to be house hunting, right? So all those people are looking for houses. Is the market going to crash? Are people going to be upside down? No, not at all. Because if you bought a $300,000 house, let's say that let's just hypothetically say something does happen and somehow the market crashes. And now they tell you that your house is worth $250,000 and you're paying, $1,500 a month. Where are you going to go? Because even if your house is under and you don't want to pay it, you got to go to an apartment and still pay $1,500 to $1,800 a month. So why wouldn't you just remain in your house? Because you're not going to get that, you're not going to get all that space in an apartment. I bought my house in 2009 when we had the original crash, right? And then after that, I remember DeKalb County saying that, the value of my property had dropped to $119,000. I didn't care. I was okay.
You said 119?
119. So all it meant to me was that my taxes went down and I didn't have to pay as much in taxes, but my mortgage payment was still $798. So it wasn't like I was going to get rid of my house and go live in an apartment and pay more than what I was paying for my mortgage. So now that the rates are lower, when the market crashed before, it was also not just because people were under, but because people had all of a sudden these outrageous mortgage payments that they couldn't afford. You know, they were in these adjustable rate mortgages. So yeah, if my mortgage payment jumped up to $1,900 and I can only afford $1,000, I'm probably going to end up losing my house. But again,
because
when my
it was like
but
so, a
there were
lot of
other
grimy stuff.
factors, right? There was other factors that tied into that. I don't see those other factors coming into play. Now, what I do think is going to happen, and we still won't see the impact of it, is that during COVID, you had a lot of people that took advantage of the forbearance and they didn't pay their mortgage, even though they could still afford to pay their mortgage. And I had quite a few people call me about it. And I told everyone, listen, if you can afford to pay your mortgage, because you're going to have to eventually pay that money back. And it's probably going to be a balloon payment. So now you have people that have that balloon payment coming due. And guess who doesn't have money to pay the bank? So you're either going to enter into some kind of agreement with, with the banks or with a third party vendor. Or if you do foreclose, you have too many corporate entities that purchase up these houses. You got too many entities that purchase your house before you ever get to foreclosure. So it's almost the only way you foreclose is if you decide you don't care and you just don't care and you're going to let it foreclose, because Zillow done already called you and offered you something for your house and offered you some money to move out the house. So there's really no reason to foreclose, because again, you don't have to unless you just absolutely are like, I don't care. So I don't think that we're ever going to see the mortgage bubble burst like we saw before, because realistically,
I agree on that.
Even at $300,000 for a house, that's still not a lot when you compare it to other markets where people are used to paying $600,000 or $700,000 for a house. And we're like, who is buying these houses and what kind of job do they have? Because I never want to be house broke, and I never want any of my buyers to be house broke.
That makes sense. Oh, wow. So, I mean, that does make sense, and it translates into investments as well, because granted, I'm I'm a fan of Rich Dad Poor Dad and all of that. And you basically use an example of your own, how he mentions, and just the stock or investment game in general. If you buy a fund or stock or different things like that, I mean, granted, stocks are different because if you can't find a buy a stock and it kind of go down, like you look at the Enron situation back in the day, you lose all your money. So that is one of the risks that associated with individual stocks. But when it comes to a fund, if the fund for whatever reason go down because of just the market, you don't technically lose money. You only lose money if you sell, right? So I mean, it's the same thing what you're mentioning with real estate, is that over time, I mean, and it's shown too, I forgot the statistics and the numbers, but over time with inflation and everything, it still grows. Like I know within the past 2 years, the equity in my house, like, man, that thing went up. And I know they're building, some more properties over here as well. I knew what I was doing. I strategically moved where I moved because I knew that the area is constantly growing. So I think that's something else more people have to take in consideration too. It's not just about what you like, but if you're looking at it as an opportunity of growth, is depending on like where are you buying it? Because I knew Atlanta is just only going to keep going up from here. The fact that the film industry moved here, all these big Marvel productions and everything moved here, it's pretty much game over. So as I continue to wrap this up, because you provide a wealth of knowledge, and I really appreciate you for just everything that you're offering, because again, I run into real estate agents all the time, and I'm pretty sure if one person saw this, they can find some level of benefit. Now, do you feel like if you wanted to say like one last word to help an agent or even a buyer or both out to make a better informed decision going forward so that they can find their financial exit strategy, what would you advise?
Just get started. That, if you don't do anything else, start the process. If you think that, oh my God, my credit is bad, I can't buy a house, okay, but you still have to start the process. You can start by just creating a budget. Because most people don't even have a budget. So you don't know what you qualify for. You can start the process if you're looking to buy, even though you may not be ready, you can still have a lender take a look at your credit and tell you what do you need to do to get approved. I will say one of the reasons that I like the NACA program is because they don't use a buyer's credit score. So I've taken someone with a 500 credit score and put them in a house, but that person paid their bills on time, because sometimes you can have low credit because you don't use your credit. So maybe it's jacked up from a long time ago, but you've never had any new credit cards. You didn't buy a new car. So your credit just kind of, remains frozen. It just doesn't go anywhere. And NACA will tell you everything that you have to do in order to get approved. Like they do all the digging and all the background. They do that up front. And then they say, okay, we've done all your background stuff. We've done everything. Now you're approved. So they definitely put you back on track, because you got to do a budget. You got to do all the stuff. And it could take you 12 months. It could take you 18 months. It just depends on what your scenario is. But if you don't get started, guess who's still going to be in the same position that you're already in? Like, you got to get started somewhere. So that's what I would tell buyers, is that, listen, just get started. Figure out what's going on with you, because you ignoring like whatever's going on with your credit is not going to make it magically disappear. You got to at least get started and take a look at it and figure out, what do you need to do? As far as a new agent who wants to come on board, just, get your license. Like, get your license first. Focus on just getting your license, because what they teach you for that test is not going to teach you real estate. Don't worry about the real estate stuff. Worry about getting your license. Once you pass your test, then we can focus on all of the other stuff that you need to do. I get agents that are in some of these groups and they're like, focusing on, well, what do I need to do? And I'm like, okay, have you passed your, well, no, I haven't even started the school. You focusing on the wrong stuff. They're like, you haven't even passed an exam yet. Let's get the exam out of the way. And then along the way, as you're going through that process, find someone that you can work with that can be a good mentor. And YouTube and Google are your friends. Like, YouTube and
how
Google
do they reach out to
friends.
you?
They can also reach out to me too. They can reach out to me.
And how would they reach out to you? What's the best way?
So the best way, I'm on social media, I am Brag Differently everything. So on Instagram, I'm Brag Differently. On Twitter, I'm Brag Differently. Or they can just give me a call, send me a text, 404-396-4519.
Okay.
So that's
and
the
Brag
easiest.
Is in Bravo Romeo Alpha Golf.
Yep, AG brag, like brag. I teach people how to brag differently, and we do that through earning, saving, investing, living, and thriving in a global world. Cool.
That's amazing. Awesome. Well, Marvette, I really
appreciate
you for taking
me.
the time out.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. All right, y'all. Well, this is the Millennial Network podcast, and I really thank y'all for tuning in with me, and we'll check out soon.